On the other side of a storm is the strength that comes from navigating through it. Raise your sail and begin. Just because you're struggling doesn't mean that you're failing. I think sometimes people equate struggling with failure. It's not. It isn't even close. In fact, if you're struggling, it tells me that you're still in the game. We don't see these incredible opportunities first because every opportunity that you and I have is surrounded by a problem. I've never gone to an opportunity that I didn't have to go to the door of problems first. So the next time you have an obstacle, a difficulty, an adversity in your life, don't allow the crisis to numb you. Be alive, learn, feel, fail, learn. That's what it's all about if you want to make this difficult time a good time. I just want you to know that there's a hero within you. I know there is. And during this tough time, let the hero out. Let people see the best of you, your highest aspirations. You be the one who's the lifter and the encourager.
Hi, Mark Cole here. In the 20 years that I have been working alongside John Maxwell, we have never seen a time as critical as this for values-based, people-centered leadership. John Maxwell says that crisis separates pretenders from players. Always has, always will. That's the purpose of the Leadership When It Matters the Most series. John Maxwell has felt that in a time like this, that we need to be offering value and extending opportunity for people that want to make a difference. You see, crisis requires leadership that gives context, leadership that will step up and lead when others won't. Now, our goal is today in this time, as you spend a little time with us, that we add value to you so that you will multiply value to others. I hope that over the next few minutes, as John Maxwell shares a lesson that he has prepared for you right now, leadership when it matters the most, that you will take note, that you will take hope, and that you will take charge. Today is the day that in this crisis, you can make a significant difference. Now, it's my pleasure to bring to you John C. Maxwell.
Hi, John Maxwell here, and I'm so glad to be with you again on this series of Leadership When It Matters Most. And you know what we're trying to do with the John Maxwell Enterprise is just very simple. During this crisis, we're just trying to come to you with some very good leadership wisdom and thinking and knowledge that you can apply to your life that will allow you to succeed during this very difficult, for some people, very, very dark time in life. And so that's what we're doing. That's who we are. We are an adding value enterprise. We just basically look around and say, okay, especially in the area of leadership, what can we put in the hands of leaders that will make them more successful? How can we resource them? How can we add value to them? What can we do that'll truly make a difference within their life? Now, if you'll remember, this is a two-part lesson, and last Monday when I was with you, I talked about how to maximize the moment, and by maximizing the moment well, what we do is we really incredibly prepare for the future. And this came off of a conversation I had with my good friend Chris Hodges when he was saying, John, talk to me about what you think the future kind of looks like. Of course, during this crisis, we're all asking, how long is it going to last? You know, how severe is it going to end up to be? When's it going to be over? We have a lot of uncertainties. And when he was talking about how do we really kind of get out in the future and make sure it's a success, what it reminded me of in that conversation I had with Chris was that if I really want to make sure that tomorrow is a success, what I really do is not focus on tomorrow, but I focus on today. That's why I wrote the book Today Matters. I focus on today because really, here's how this works. In fact, Mark Cole, after this lesson, shared this with me, and I loved it so much I picked up and put it in my notes. He said, basically, John, what you said to all of us is when what I need to be should come before what I see, you know. And so what I need to be should always precede what I'm going to see. And so maximizing the moment, preparing for the future, is all about what do I do right now in my life that's just going to set me up, position me so when the future is here, I'm ahead. I'm doing well. It's my mentor, John Wooden, who said, when opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. What was he saying? Prepare now. And this lesson is about preparing now. And I shared in part one, real quick review here, I shared words. One of the things I do when I'm getting ready to create thought is on a piece of paper, I put a statement, which is kind of a thesis statement, and then I put one-word thoughts underneath of it that kind of are like connect the dots back to that statement. And last week in the lesson, and by the way, you can go back and pick up that lesson if you want to, I gave you 5 words. Let me give them to you now. And number 1 was humility. And basically what I taught in humility, because this is so important, is humility, it moves us from the center to the side. When we're not humble, we're in the middle of everything. It's all about us. And what happens with a crisis is that it moves all of us, and all of a sudden we realize, just like John Kennedy, oh God, your ocean is so big and my boat is so small. All of a sudden we realize that we don't have answers and we're not quite as good as we thought we were. And humility is a beautiful virtue because it gets me off of me and thinking about me and what are my needs and puts me to the side, and I begin to think about you. And how can I be your helper and your keeper? So the first word was humility. It's a very anchoring word during a crisis. The second was about adaptability. If you really want to do well in a crisis and prepare yourself for tomorrow, you just have to be able to adjust and be flexible. I talk about that in one of my later books, Leader Shift. And I talk about the fact that if you can shift well, you really go through the storm much, much better. And I talked in that lesson last week about detours, because what a crisis does is a crisis brings detours in our life. Whenever you think of a crisis, here's what I know. How you did things is not how you do them now. The journey you took isn't the same journey. In fact, you go to the path that you know so well and the road that you traveled so much, and what do you see? You see a detour sign and you go, oh my gosh, I want to go that way, but I gotta go that way. And so we get on the detour tour. And now my problem is whenever I'm on a detour, I can hardly wait to get off of it. I want to get, all through that, let me get through that maze and get back to where I know I'm going to be able to get going. On this detour tour, don't be in such a hurry to get off of it. You literally are going to see things you've never seen. You're going to be able to understand things you've never understood. Take your time. Go slow on the detour tour. Because I can promise you, there are things you need to see, the things you need to know that will be opportunities for you in your future. I know that for a fact. So many times, our setbacks become springboards because we just have to go see something, think differently, experience something totally opposite of what we've known. And all of a sudden we think, oh my, there's value in that detour. So adaptability is a huge word of maximizing your potential now so you can be sure to, seize the future tomorrow. The third word I gave was a little phrase, and that's open-handedness. And I taught in that lesson last week about the fact we're either closed-handed or we're open-handed. And if we're closed-handed, my friend Mark Victor Hansen shared this one time with me. He said, John, if you have a scarcity mindset and you just have your hand closed and you're trying to hold on to what you got because it's the only thing that you got and you don't want anyone else to have it, he said every time an opportunity comes by that closed hand, you miss the opportunity because you're holding on to what you have that's so important that you're not willing to let go and see something that could be bigger or better. And we just need to be open-handed. My wife went out this morning and got our kind of carry-out breakfast. We're still not able to go to restaurants down here in southern Florida. And so when she came back and we were having our breakfast together, a little carry-out, she said, I gave the people there an extra large tip today. And I said, good, I'm proud of you, honey. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Every time I go out, I double, triple tip. I mean, there's a real loss out there in that business community, in those restaurants, and they're not getting the income they have. And I can't make up the whole difference, but I'd like to make up a little. And open-handed is a huge way of generous spirit to have during this crisis. The fourth word I talked about was just having discussions, which is nothing more than sitting down with other people and having discussions about what are you learning from the experience. And shared thinking, shared discussions just really make us all better. If you have a good thought and I have a good thought and we share those thoughts, we both have a better thought because we came together. So I talked about the value of discussions. And then fifthly, I said there's great value in reflection. And asking questions as you reflect, because reflection takes experience and turns it into insight. Now I'm about to give you, I think it is 5 more words in this lesson, but I'm going to give you some more words that will help maximize your potential. But before I do that, though, I've never seen a time. I think you know. I have a coaching company, John Maxwell Team. And we have 33,000 coaches in 162 countries in the world. We're the largest, fastest growing coaching company in the world. And I've never in my life seen a time where coaching was more essential than right now. People are looking for answers. They're looking for somebody to come alongside of them, help them, give them guidance, coach them a little bit. And so we just have an incredible certification program for our coaches that really takes them and gives them the skills that they need to not only help other people during a crisis like this, but to really have a skill set that they can develop an entire coaching career. We have a whole bunch of people, thousands of people that has become a career for them, and they're coaches and they're entrepreneurial and they're just growing and developing, and it's our joy to certify them. And I say that because we just had a webinar recently in which we taught people coaching skills and a little bit more about what we can do for them, and it was totally full. And I want to encourage you. If this kind of resonates and you're kind of saying, well, I'd like to be on John's coaching team. I'd like to, or at least I'd like to know how to maybe be equipped. I mean, some of you maybe are saying, this maybe wouldn't be my full-time career, but it could be a part-time job. I don't know. But let me just say this. If this kind of resonates with you right now, just take this down real quickly. I want you to go to, okay, are you ready? CoachWithJohn.com. CoachWithJohn.com. And we will have there a free webinar for you that will show you how to build your coaching business, okay? So just write it down as I'm going to give you the rest of this lesson right now, but just write it down, CoachWithJohn.com. If you'll do that, some of you will look back at this crisis and say, this is where I got a whole new career. This is where I got a whole fresh breath of life as far as who I am and what I can do. We would love, love, love to serve you and work with you. Now, this lesson, 5 words. The first word is curiosity. Okay, and when I think of a person that's curious, we've all heard the expression, get out of the box. Now let me tell you the good news. The crisis gets you out of the box. We're all out of the box right now. In fact, the crisis blows up the box. You don't even have to walk out. It's just all of a sudden, the box that you were in, it's gone. That baby is blown to smithereens, and you kind of look around and you've been blindsided, and you say, wow, what in the heck happened? Well, the crisis took the box from us. Let me give you a quote that I love by Sir Francis Bacon. He said, if a person will begin with certainties, he will end up with doubts, but if he will be content to begin with doubts, he will end up in certainties. And what's happened is once we get out of the box, we get out of familiar territory, and we get into the uncertainty territory of our life. I understand that. In fact, the older I get, the more uncertainties, to be honest with you, that I have. And it's okay. It's okay. When I was young, I was really good. When I was young, I just had answers. Anybody, you have a question, I'll give you an answer. I was just a good old choleric, and I had answers for everything, for everybody, and in every place. And I was just kind of like Mr. Answer Man. But as I've lived through life is difficult. And all the things that I thought were black and white, a lot of it, they're just, to be honest with you, they're gray. And I found that the older I've got, the less certainties I've had. And that's okay. It's okay, because a lot of that chaff needed to be blown away for me to have the firm foundation I have today. Here's what I do know. Today I have fewer certainties than I've ever had before. But the ones I have, I'm more certain about them than I ever have been before. They've been tried. They've been through the fire. They've been tested. They've been proven. And I'm just sharing with you today that, wow, the uncertainties that we have around us, I'm pretty good with uncertainties. You see, I've learned that's not a problem. That uncertainties always drive me to the things that I'm certain about, my values and my faith. And that just becomes an anchor. You see, at an early age, when I was younger, I wanted to know everything. And so I was always asking, how long will it take before I get all of my knowledge? And today, I just know I don't need to know everything. I just need to grow in everything. There's a lot of difference between knowing everything and growing in it. And now it's kind of like, how far can I go? And see, people's desires, they're saying during the crisis, oh my gosh, can we return back to normal? When are we going to have normal? And basically what they're asking is, can I go back to the box? I want to get back in the box. You don't want to get back in the box. You see, that box is filled with all kind of limitations. That box is filled with all kind of assumptions that aren't helping you. And inside the box, I know it's easy because it's automatic, but you're not growing in the box. And so the best thing that's happened during the crisis is the box has been blown up. And now you're on the detour. And I just want to challenge you, if you're on the detour, embrace the detour tour. Embrace it. Learn from it. Grow from it. You're going to meet people you would have never met if you wouldn't have been on the detour. You're going to see things you would have never seen. You're going to have opportunities that you would never have presented to you if you wouldn't have been on the detour tour. So stay on it. Stay curious. That curiosity will just allow you to expand and grow and develop yourself. It's a huge word. Now, I'm going to talk to you in a moment about some other words. And I'm going to teach you what we call in the John Maxwell Team Company, the circle of success. It's a cycle. It's a cycle of success. And it has 5 words in it. So these are words that we're adding to the words that you need to know today to maximize your potential right now so you can prepare yourself for the future. So let's go through these words. The first word in our circle of success in our John Maxwell team, which is our coaching company that we hope that you'll become a part of, the first word is test. And whenever we test all the time, by the way. And whenever we're testing, what we're really saying is, we know there's a better way. When we're testing, we're saying we know that there is always an answer. And maybe we don't have the answer yet, and maybe we have a way, but it's not the best way. Testing means there's just a better way. And by the way, I was talking to someone the other day, a leader, about the coronavirus and our crisis that we're in. And I said to him, this is the greatest day of testing I've ever seen in my life, because people are so fearful, they're so panicked, they're so uncertain, that you can test anything right now and you can get by with it. Because we're hearing all kind of predictions. Some of them are true, some of them are not true, some of them are really way out. I mean, you can say, start throwing mud on the wall. Nobody, during safe, secure times when you want to do something a little different, people say, wait, what are you doing? We've already figured out how to be successful, which you haven't, but you think you have. But during times when you're in the deepest valley and it's the darkest, people will let you test. In fact, they're willing to test. They're just throwing mud on the wall saying, what's going to stick? What will work? So there's never been a better testing time than right now. In fact, as I'm doing this teaching to you, literally last month, just through social media, we reached 1.6 million people in my teaching. Last year, in personal appearances, I only reached 1.2 million. In other words, in 1 month, by testing, by doing something totally different than what I've done before, I reached in 1 month more than I reached an entire year last year. That's the beauty about throwing it out there, testing it. I had a mentor for several years, a wonderful man. His name was Bill, and he would come to me and he would many times in our conversation, just look at me and say, John, when's the last time you did something for the first time? He was trying to keep me creative. He's trying to keep me testing and getting out of the box and staying curious. When's the last time you did something the first time? Now, when he was asking you that question, he was talking about what are you adding to your life that you don't have in your life that's going to make you better? That's what that question's all about. Well, I have a question for you today. When's the last time you did something for the last time? Yeah. When's the last time you did something for the last time? In other words, you said, that doesn't work any better. That doesn't work anymore. That doesn't satisfy me. Now, that's all about subtraction. Bill's question was addition. When's the last time you did something for the first time? In other words, what are you creating and building? But I'm asking, when's the last time you did something for the last time? What are you losing? What are you letting go? So what are you getting rid of so that you can be better tomorrow? What's held you back? When I turned 17 and knew that I was going to be a speaker all of my life, my father, who, by the way, is still alive today, he's 98. My dad, who is also a speaker and very, very successful, said to me, John, if you're going to be a good speaker, he said, you got to put well in the water so that whenever you go to the water, you have water. You go to the well, you have water to pull out. In other words, he said, you got to resource yourself well. And he told me, he said, file every day, read every day. And so at 17, I started reading and filing every day and literally have done it all my life. Just a few years ago, about 5 now, I was looking at those filing cabinets with thousands of articles that had been written and tens of thousands of quotes. I mean, if you do it every day and you do it for, 50 years, after a while, you just become pretty amazing. And I would go to those files when I was going to write or book or teach on a subject, and I'd pull out material and I'd get it and I would use it. And one day I began to realize I was relying way too much on those files, that I wasn't as creative and I wasn't testing what I should be testing, because I had a safety net. I go over there and, well, here I got this. And I was starting to read old thoughts, and old thoughts are old thoughts. They're not relevant. They're not new. They're not fresh. They don't breathe. There's no fire and passion in them. And I made a decision, a very difficult decision, all of my work for all those years of filing. I made a decision to get rid of all of it. And I didn't tell anybody. I didn't even tell my wife, Margaret, because I was afraid I would back out. And to be honest with you, this is a huge step for me. I can still remember we were living in a condo. I can still remember the day when Margaret was gone, and I looked over those files, and I called up one of the service people, one of the bellmen there at the place where we stayed, and I showed him those cabinets. I said, I gave him $200. I said, I'm going to do me a favor, get rid of those. I'm going to be gone for 2 hours. Just, I don't care what you do with them. You can, dump them, do whatever you want, but just, I don't want them here when I'm back. And so I took my time and left for a couple hours, came back, and he had done exactly what I asked. The cabinets were all gone. And then all of a sudden, I looked and I saw all of my work that I had expended, and I literally, where those cabinets were standing, I sat down right there and I wept like a baby for 15 minutes because I realized I had just let go of so much of what I had held on to. Now, I'm just going to say to you, one of the good things about a crisis is it begins to help us to let go of the things that we have depended on the past so that we can go to an entire new level of living. I'm more creative today than I would have been if I'd have had those files. I test more than I would have been because that was a crutch to me. I was holding on to what I knew instead of letting go so I could grab hold of what I could become. So that's a huge word right now. Just be testing. That it's going to make you the person you need to be during this time. Okay, we're back to the cycle, the circle of success. Test is the top. And then fail. Testing says that there's a better way, and failing says, I haven't found that way. You test and you go, oops, I thought that might work. It didn't work. But let me tell you something. Failing tells you that, I haven't found that way, but it also tells you, but I'm getting closer to finding that way because I've just tried something that I found didn't work. It's the Thomas Edison thing. It's old, it's worn, but it really is greatly true. And when he said about the incandescent light bulb, and he had over 9,000 tests and failures, and he said, I'm just 9,000 steps closer to discovering and getting what I want to have. What he knew is you if you test a lot, you're going to fail a lot. That's just the way of doing it. Wow. I wrote a book called Failing Forward several years ago. And I just love the title of the book because it was giving the picture of failure, yes, but when we failed forward. In other words, wow, we made an advance. Okay, we have to get back up, but if you're 5.5 feet every time you fall, you get back up. You could have gained 5.5 feet, and the failing forward is a beautiful picture of the fact that I'm testing, I'm failing, but I'm getting better even in the process of that. And one of the things I teach is the fact that you're never good the first time. I'm always amazed when people come to me and they say, well, I'm really working hard. I'm really practicing here. I've never done this before. I'm writing my first book. Oh my gosh, I really want it to be a great book. And I look at them and I want that for them too, but that's not reality. I guess in a fatherly way, I try to pull them aside and just help them understand that this is true of me, this is true of you. It's true of all of us. We're never good the first time, but we just aren't. We want to be good. We practice to be good, but we haven't done it enough to be good yet. If you're trying to develop a skill, the first time isn't a good time. It's a difficult time because you've never done that before, and it's okay. And that's part of this process of testing and failing that we're never good. I just finished last week what will become my 4th book. And it's entitled Change Your World. It's not going to be out for about a year. But I worked so hard on that book. And I rewrote it. Hang on. Me and my writing team rewrote the book 6 times. Yeah, we did. There was the first time, and it was okay. So we said, okay, now what? Let's start upgrading. So the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time. Now I'm not a novice writer. I've been an author for since 1979. I've got writing down pretty good. I really do. 6 times. 6 times. I don't want us to miss this. That the more we test, the more we fail. But what I really don't want us to miss is the fact that that's part of this process, and that testing and failing have got to be linked just like success has to be linked to them. And I'll come back to that in a moment, because right now, wow, I love sports, and we're all going crazy with the quarantine and no sports basically. And I'll be honest with you, I don't love sports enough to watch the 1987 Collegiate National Championship basketball game. Honestly, once it's over, it's kind of over for me. So I'm not watching much sports. And so what are we all doing on ESPN? We're watching the Last Dance with Michael Jordan. Yeah, we are, because at least it's fresh material, and what an incredible athlete he was. But here's what I love about Michael Jordan. You saw the advertisement, I'm sure, sometime in your life. Probably the greatest basketball player ever. And what does he say? In one of his commercials, he said, I've missed over 9,000 shots. I've lost 300 games, and the 26 times I've missed the game-winning shot. In fact, Michael Jordan probably has missed more game-winning shots than any person that ever lived, and yet he's probably the greatest basketball player that ever lived. And what do I want to teach you out of this? It's very simple. You cannot, you will not, you should not, you never should separate failure from success. They're inseparable. There is no one that has ever been successful without having a lot of failure in that journey. It's just part of the path you take. And somehow we've tried to isolate it and put success over here and failure over here and say, these two things that they should never meet again. Wow. Don't separate them. They belong together. In fact, it's out of our failures that we have a humility that allows us to have a great center that allows us to take that success and be more balanced in it. And it's just you've got to go through failure to get to success. You just have to. There's no other. You don't bypass failure and say, I don't want failure and disappointment. I just like to get to the no. You got to go through it. You got to go through failure to get to success. So we're learning some words that are maximizing us right now. Test, fail. Here's the next word, learn. And by the way, the value of failure is that you're learning something from it. So when anybody talks about failure in their life, the question I always ask them in that failure is, talk to me. What have you learned? Because that's absolutely huge. What have you and I learned? And what are you and I learning through the coronavirus right now, through this crisis? What are we learning? You know, in the Peanuts cartoon, Charlie Brown, he's at the beach and he's spent the whole day and he's carefully built a pretty amazing castle in the sand, and he's standing back and he's looking at it and he's just admiring it. And all of a sudden, the big waves come in and a storm comes in and just goes over the castle and engulfs the whole castle. And all at once, all of his artwork, all of his time, all of his effort, it's all just with one wave washed away. And he's standing now before where this castle was, this just smooth place of sand, and where his artwork stood, it's all gone. Everything's gone. And he's saying to himself, yeah, there must be a lesson here, but I don't know what it is. Well, that's Charlie Brown. He always knew there was a lesson. He just wasn't sure what it was. Well, in this time of crisis, there is a lesson. But you want to advance a little bit beyond Charlie. You want to stay with it long enough to ask yourself, what am I learning from it? Wow. I'm learning a lot from it. I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm learning that I need more time for creativity than I've given it. I'm at a max creative time in my life right now, but I know why. It's because I have time to be creative. I need to have some margins in my life for my health. This has been good for me. I'm learning. I'm having to make changes. I know you are too. I know you are. Let me give you another word that will help maximize us during this crisis, and that is the word improve. Yeah. And by the way, just like the value of failure is that we learn from it, the value of learning is that we improve out of it. If learning by itself there's not much value in learning. I mean, if you want to know something, just get on your iPhone and ask Siri. She'll tell you. Learning is you learn something so that you can improve. Wow. Here's what I believe. Everyone can improve. You can improve. I can improve. Everything can be improved. I believe that. Everything. No matter what you're doing, everything can be improved. And I believe that every day has improvement possibilities. Every day. Today is another day where you and I can improve. One of my favorite stories on improvement comes from my friends at Chick-fil-A. Great people. I've had some wonderful training, teaching moments with them. And there was a time, this goes back, maybe 18, 20 years ago, when the Boston market was starting to maybe cut in a little bit to Chick-fil-A's profits and market share. And so the board was talking about the fact that we need to get bigger. And Truett Cathy, the founder, who's now passed away, what an incredible man he was. Truett Cathy looked at the board as they're saying, got to get bigger. And he looked at him and said, don't worry about getting bigger. Just worry about getting better. And trust me, he said, if we get better, the customers will make sure we get bigger. They'll demand that we get bigger. And I thought to myself, he understood the value of improvement. A book that I read really in my high school years that marked me greatly was a book by James Allen. And James Allen, As a Man Thinketh, was the title of the book. He wrote this statement that just has been sealed in my heart for so many years. He said, people are anxious to improve their circumstances, but they are not anxious to improve themselves. Now get the picture. They're anxious to improve their circumstances. Let's get rid of the crisis. Let's get over the crisis. When's the crisis going to be? That's all circumstances, folks. They're anxious to get the crisis gone, fix the crisis, remove the crisis, whatever. Get the crisis out of my life. They're anxious to improve their circumstances. What they're not anxious to do is improve themselves. And so what does he say? He said, because they don't improve themselves, they remain bound. I don't want us to remain bound out of this crisis. I want us to be freed out of that crisis entirely differently than that. So during this crisis, I gave you a challenge, and that is focus on improving yourself more than improving your circumstances. Again, that's why I'm giving you these one words that will maximize you today to prepare you for tomorrow. So am I improving? Am I improving? Am I improving in my humility, adaptability, open-handedness, my discussions with my peers? Am I improving in my questions, my reflections, my curiosity, my testing, my failing, my learning? Am I improving in these areas? Just give me a couple more minutes because there's another word I want to introduce to you right now, and that is the word re-enter. It's a great word. Now notice the cycle of success. Test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter. Now when do you re-enter? When do you get back in the game? After you've tested, failed, learned, and improved. You know, in America, we just love a tenacious person, and we love a person that's just always in the fight, and they just stay in the game. And, you know, it's kind of like they rise up and they hit an obstacle, and they go back down, and they just keep getting back up, and we just look at them and say, oh, what a tenacious person. Boy, they're never down. They're either up or they're getting up. And let me tell you, this is not a picture of a tenacious person. This is a picture of a stupid person. Let me make a suggestion. While you're down, stay down until you have figured out why you keep getting knocked down. You see, the only time to re-enter the game is when you've learned from your failures and improved on what you've learned. Once I get better, I can get back into the game. And, you know, I just real quickly suggest again that if you want to kind of get into a new game, maybe a new career, if you'll again go to coachwithjohn.com, go to that website, we'll have a little webinar that'll teach you how to kind of get started on the journey and perhaps even, you know, get the skills to be a John Maxwell coach. I would love to have you. Okay. One more word, and I close, and that's prayer. And you may not be a person of faith, and you know me now. You know me. I tell you this all the time. Doesn't ever matter to me. I love you unconditionally, regardless of background, religion. Doesn't matter. Those things are not important to me. The only thing that's important to me is you. I value you. But the serenity prayer is such a terrific prayer for crisis, and as you know, it's used in so many incredible forums where people are trying to improve their life, Alcoholics Anonymous, et cetera. I mean, it's a great prayer, and I just close with it, and I'll read it to you, and you can just kind of listen along, and it just very simply says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's what I pray for you right now. It's what I pray for myself. Help us to understand the things we cannot change and have the courage to do the things we can to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'm glad you're with me today. My name's John, and I'm your friend.
Thanks for being with us today on the Leadership When It Matters the Most program. I hope John encouraged you in your leadership just like he encouraged me. Our goal in this time of crisis is to come alongside you, add value to you so you can multiply value to others. If you go to johnmaxwell.com, you'll find free resources, tools that will help you lead in these very unique times. You'll find our podcast, John Maxwell Leadership Podcast, Minute with Maxwell, a daily word that John will bring to you, as well as our leadership blog. All of those resources on johnmaxwell.com, and they are free and ready for you to encourage you as well as you encourage others. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon when leadership matters the most.